President Cyril Ramaphosa presented his third State of the Nation address on Thursday. Among some of his promises, Ramaphosa is hoping to have 2 million young people employed in the next 10 years. But did his speech come across as clear and detailed on all the challenges the country is faced with? For more reaction, I'm joined by Wayne Duvenage from the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse. Wayne, thank you very much for joining this afternoon.
Nice to be with you.
To answer that question right off the bat, what was your impression? A lot of people have criticised the president for being very vague and perhaps laying out his dreams for the future, but not laying out his detailed plans on how to make those dreams a reality.
Exactly. You know, government is only of the possible, and unless you can tell us how you can implement. We've heard this all before. We've heard the 2 million jobs before. We've heard about improving the quality of education so that kids can read by the age of 10. What we wanted to hear was, well, how? Because all of these ideas and plans are just ideas until they are implemented. They are nothing more than that.
Sorry to interrupt you there, but if we've heard it all before, is that because Sona is not necessarily the place, or do you think Sona needs to change and become the place where the president commits to exact outcomes and dates?
Yes, that's exactly it. The State of the Nation is just that. Tell us what the state of the nation is in, and tell us what you believe you're going to do to amend that, to change it, to fix the state of the nation. Now, the state of the nation is in an extremely dire situation right now, and he did elaborate a little bit on that. But we want to hear as the people, well, how are we going to address this? I think Cyril Ramaphosa lost an opportunity of leadership to stand up there and take the country forward. He has the whole public sector listening. Civil society can take pieces from that Sona and hold those civil society, the public servants to account on the statements that he makes. He didn't deal clearly on corruption. He never got down to the real issues of, you know, looking at world best practice, bringing into being a very formidable approach to fighting corruption, an anti-corruption strategy that had milestones and good opportunities to tackle this issue, and it's a serious issue.
Do you think that's because we don't have an implementable strategy, that he didn't go through those points? Or do you think it's...
I don't think we have. We should have heard about it. Look, the foundations of the rule of law are far better off now than they were just a year ago. So we have Shamila Batoy, we have Advocate Cronje now in the NPA, we've got Willie Hofmeyer back in the Assets Forfeiture Unit. These are all good things.
I noticed they're missing is the public protector from that list of...
Absolutely. The public protector needs to be removed. We have a petition that has gone to Parliament, and we've heard many other organisations. The public protector is compromised. We've seen some of the ruling. The judgments against her are scathing. And really, she is not doing herself any favours in protecting the public from the abuse that is happening out there. The Stina dairy farm is this one, which is another matter that really frustrates us, because the president says in his speech that we welcome and want civil society to hold government to account. But when we do that, and when we lay charges against these ministers, and they find their way into heading up and chairing these portfolio committees, this is Mosebenzi Zwane, Faith Matambi, Safisa Buthelezi, these are people that have serious charges we've laid against them with strong evidence. So it's a bit of a slap in the face.
When we talk about corruption, I want to talk about SOEs specifically. A lot of people saying that corruption at SOEs is one of our biggest problems that the president needs to tackle right off the bat. Why are we not getting there? Is it leadership? Is it because there is just such a vast or deep pockets allocated to SOEs that they are too easy to plunder?
They are, and look, the rot has gone so deep. I think when you start to fix, you've got to try and tackle the big things, and the cost overrun. So in Eskom, you've got massive amounts of staff, about 30 to 40% more than you need. That's not going to happen overnight. You've got coal contracts that are way out of line, and you've got to bring those back in line. Plus, below the surface of the leadership, lots of managers with their fingers in the till, and that cleanup process is going to take years. If you look at the airline, there's SAA, for instance, a lot of problems there. but that's not a crucial state-owned institution. So what we were hoping for in the President's speech is to see some more clear decision-making around non-crucial state-owned entities. How do we take them off the government's books? How do we privatize them without losing too many jobs, and have as least pain as possible? We do not need to be an armaments manufacturer country. We are not at war. We do not need to own airlines. And these are the things that we're completely missing. The unbundling of Eskom, I haven't heard enough about that. So it was very disappointing to not see and hear the clarity around SOEs.
Before we carry on talking about leadership at a municipal level, because I want to get into that next, let's have a listen to Minister of State-Owned Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, and his comments on leadership at SOEs.
The CEO of SAA left a couple of weeks ago, and among the reasons we are told that he left was because he didn't get the cooperation from government. Government didn't deliver on the promises it made to him.
Look, I don't want to go into a small individual matter, because it is a small individual matter at the end of the day. But place yourself in a position where this is the minister, or you are the Minister of Finance, and this gentleman who works in one of the SOEs says, can I have a blank check, please? There's no blank checks available. So each of the entities in government, whether they are in SOEs or government departments, have to make a bid to the Treasury. And usually, as you know from my past, I would know something about this. If your budget is coming out at about R1 trillion, you'll have bids of 400 billion rands more. So not everybody is going to get everything. And working within the constrained environment that all of us have described means that you must have resilience, means that you must have patience, means that you must also understand the context in which you actually operate, so that you can be part of a team that can say at the end of a journey, I was part of repositioning a particular entity. So you have choices to make in life. No CEO, ask him, can decide who must be on the board to which the CEO accounts. That's impossible. It doesn't happen in the private sector. It can't happen in the public sector. But let me leave that there.
So that's a very important indictment on the way leaders organize the institutions underneath them to support corruption.
Yeah, and we saw that very clearly under Dudu Mnyeni in SAA, as we saw with Brian Molefe in Eskom and in Transnet. There is a very clear structuring to plunder the purse of the state-owned institutions. And remember, they are these organizations that have massive amounts of expenditure, especially around capital infrastructure upgrading, roads. So we see at Sanral, the cost of roads has also doubled, or twice as much we paid for the Gauteng Freeway project as well over the last 10 years. And this is the stuff that has to be rectified. Now, the new leadership is cleaning up, but what we would like to see more of, and what we were really frustrated that they leave it to civil society, is that these current boards have the minutes, have all the decisions that were made before. They can go and fetch and lay the charges against those boards who are delinquent, all of those directors, hold them to account and claw back as much of the money. We don't see enough of that happening in these state-owned institutions as the new leadership's been put in place. And we would like to see more of that. We do believe Eskom is doing that now. That's great. We have charges being laid now against the previous board of SAA. That will be coming out shortly. But there are lots of boards and lots of corruption that's taken place. And we need those people to feel the pain of their actions.
Moving on to sort of a more ground everyday level. Corruption at municipal level is eating away at not only every department, every level, healthcare provision, service delivery, on every level, but it's so much harder to track and fight because it's on a smaller scale.
It is, but it's big in the scheme of 250 municipalities. These are like big businesses. The budgets that just a medium-sized town handles, billions of rands. And you wonder the quality of the individuals that are put into the municipal management positions. These are people that you would normally have running CEOs of big organizations. They're underqualified. They're manipulated by the politicians. And so you see this gross abuse of the revenues that are collected from ratepayers. So Eskom isn't being paid. And no municipal managers are being held accountable. Only a few, a handful, have been arrested, have been tried, and we would like to see far more of that happening.
Why is it not happening?
Well, there's a lack of transparency. There's a lack of accountability. We have started to engage with the provincial governments. We see a lack of understanding of their role, playing an oversight and holding those municipal managers and mayors to account, and the CFOs of those towns. And they don't even understand their role. So you have national treasury, political pressure being put on them to give out the grants when towns don't even qualify for them. There's a lot of work that has to happen in that space. So again, in Sona, Cyril Ramaphosa says we need civil society to hold government to account. Well, we also need civil society to hold local government to account. And that's where we're calling on government to allow civil society to play a much bigger role in the management and the running of those towns. If it doesn't happen that way going forward, you're going to see more tax revolts at a local level taking place. It's already happening in a silent manner in many of them, and there's going to be a further collapse of those local communities. The mayors and that are going to be taken to task, and you're going to find that civil society and organised civil society and communities in towns will be running those towns in the near future.
Do you see a growing support for organisations like yours because people are frustrated and fed up?
Yeah, we do. We also see a lot of towns and people in towns, ratepayers associations, business chambers organising themselves and taking these local municipal managers to task. We have seen in some cases some municipal managers realizing that their role has to change, working closely with civil society and starting to turn the fortunes of those towns around. So there's a glimmer of hope in some of the towns, but yes, there's a big call out for organized civil society to take up the fight at local government. Now, Cyril Ramaphosa and COGTA and SELGA, all of these organizations, government-led entities, are not doing enough in that space. And that's where the people feel the pain. When the sewage runs down the streets, when your lights are off, your water quality deteriorates. That is where we are going to see a lot of pushback on government.
Because every conversation has to be balanced and we can't just look at the negative things, we've got to look at the positive things as well. What did you take from the President's speech that was positive and that made you hopeful?
Well, look, you know, I think we're generally positive about the fact that we have the right person there. Cyril Ramaphosa is playing a very clever game of chess, fighting an onslaught within his own party. He set the mandate clear on the Reserve Bank. He spoke about prioritizing and focus areas. This is good. I think he sent a strong message to the ratings agencies. We have a job. We understand the extent of the problems, and we're going to address them. He is surrounding himself and building, as I said, within the rule of law, the good structures which we need, and surrounding himself with the right people. So I think it's going to take a bit longer. Because the leadership is being distracted by these forces within that shouldn't be there. If he didn't have to deal with that nonsense, well, we'd be able to forge ahead at a lot faster pace. So I'm very positive about the future of the country. It's just taking far too long.
How do we speed up that process? Because unfortunately, you can't clear out all of the people who've been working, because despite frustration from across the board, you can't judge people on face value. We don't have all of the facts. A lot of the facts are coming out and it's taking a long time in these inquiries. How do we speed up that process to get really impactful governance on a local and municipal level?
So there's a couple of things you do. You force the process of absolute transparency. And let me tell you why. If in the Eastern Cape, the people and the public were aware of the fact that there was going to be 20 million rand spent on 20 toilets, I don't think they would have allowed that to happen. Once the money is spent, it's too late. We need transparency in procurement, and we need accountability. When you start driving those two in all areas of government, and you allow civil society to participate in exposing what is wrong, then you'll get a fast turnaround. Then we need to beef up the rule of law processes in the NPA and the special investigations units. Once you get their capacity up, so we can start holding people to account faster. There are a lot of people in Parliament, that need to be in jail. It's as simple as that. That process, if it is left unhindered to continue without interference of politics, I can assure you you'll find very wealthy people in orange overalls very, very quickly. We need that process to happen right now, and we need accountability at all levels. When you get that, I think we start turning the ship a lot faster.
Last question. We have accusations or an investigation by the public protector at the moment into President Ramaphosa himself that he misled members of parliament. If we are going to support investigations and transparency across the board, we have to be consistent.
Yes.
And those kind of investigations need to be given time as well. But sometimes those processes are used maliciously to derail people. How do we manage that process?
Well, you've got to deal with it. You've got to give it the time. Everybody's got to answer to the questions that are put to them, and you've got to allow that process to flow and be open about it. What we would like to see is government taking international best practice in fighting corruption, and there are many good examples in Georgia, Afghanistan, funnily enough, and other countries where we can deal with this quite quickly. Actually, you might have to bring in additional assistance, maybe even international assistance. You need to beef up all the forensic auditing that needs to take place. There are a lot of companies that have people like that. And if you put into place a specific task team and a specific strategy to let that unfold over the next year or two, you can send a clear message to the public and to the public sector and private sector that corruption and gross maladministration is unacceptable. And that's the leadership that was missing in that speech. We needed to hear the president. Yes, it's good to dream of big cities and bullet trains and that. What we wanted to see is great, strong leadership around this country will not tolerate corruption for another day. We're going to fix it. We have to fix it fast.
Thank you very much for your time and your insight. Wayne Duvenage talking to us there from the organisation Undoing Tax Abuse about his take on the president's Sona.